I'm sure like many of you are aware of the the federal government in Canada imposing like a travel ban, which I think is like illegal and unconstitutional. So I want to pull up an article right now that helps explain it all. So, so this is an article from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. Yeah, I can't see the top part, but yeah, this is an article from JCCF's website. Says Justice Center prepares to challenge unscientific travel regulations in federal court. It says the the Justice the Justice Center today announced its intention to challenge Transport Canada's Ministerial Order 47 in federal court, announced on November 30th by Transportation Minister Omar Al-Gabra. The new ministerial order prevents non-Jab Canadians from boarding planes, trains, and marine passenger vessels anywhere in Canada. So it's completely like illegal and unconstitutional what they're doing. So I think luckily like there's there's a little bit of pushback happening. So and then it says um, medical and scientific evidence establishes the following to date. This is the transportation minister. It's his name Omar Al Gabra. This is a picture of him. Uh, so medical and scientific evidence establishes the following to date. The new COVID jabs do not prevent the transmission of COVID in accordance with what the jab manufacturers themselves have stated. Both the jabbed and unjabbed can get COVID and can spread COVID without significant or verified differences between the two groups. Both the jabbed and unjabbed die from COVID. Both the jabbed and unjabbed are being hospitalized with COVID. Natural immunity in those who have already had COVID is as effective and likely more effective than jab induced immunity, and the new COVID jabs have harmful side effects, including myocarditis and death, that have caused many Canadians to withhold their informed consent to taking one. The COVID jabs are still in clinical trials until 2023. So note this part here. Um, so these COVID jabs are still going through like are still going through clinical trials until 2023. So these jabs they haven't even been like testing for these jabs haven't been completed yet. So like there's no data to like show like to show if these jabs are safe or not. So as it says up here, how they're still going through clinical trials and they won't be expected to be complete until 2023. Then it says vilifying an identifiable group in society as dirty or claiming that they're spreaders of disease is a page from the playbook of history's most abhorrent tyrants. States States J. Communication Director at the Justice Center. or and persecution of the past half century, he continues. We see government escalating its persecution of the millions of Canadians who are exercising their constitutional right to bodily autonomy and have opted out of receiving one of the new COVID jabs that have not been subjected to any long-term safety testing, states Alison Pejovich, staff lawyer at the Justice Center. Preventing millions of Canadians from traveling by plane or train is a gross infringement of their civil liberties and is guaranteed to hurt their employment, businesses, and ability to feed their families. Parliament has not been consulted about this blatant violation of Section 6 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which provides that Canadians have the right to freely enter and leave the country, she continues. So that's another thing too, is that ever since this whole pandemic or whatever you want to call it started, there's been nothing is really being debated anymore in the legislatures or in Parliament, as if it's all being rushed through without consultation. So yeah. Yeah, and also yeah, that's all and because there's no real debates happening in the legislatures and Parliament, um yeah, everything is being done behind closed doors without any consultation with the public whatsoever. So yeah, this is all just happening without without yeah without any public consultation. So it's all just being pushed through without any without any without any say. So then it says ministerial order 47 is blatantly unconstitutional and is a dangerous escalation of the divisive policies that have become the hallmark of our federal and provincial governments in the past 21 months, added Saeed Hassan, staff lawyer at the Justice Center. Then it says the Trudeau government is ruling via ministerial fiat, not pursuant to any democratic checks and balances. The Canadian Constitution makes no provision for the kind of autocratic rule that has become normal in Canada at both federal and provincial levels since March of 2020, states Mr. Cameron. Measures stripping millions of Canadians of their mobility rights must go before Parliament and not be left to the arbitrary and unchecked will of one minister. We are preparing court documents to file in federal court to ask the judge to uphold Canadians' charter rights and freedoms in the face of unprecedented government oppression, he concludes. So that's the end of the article. And yeah, so the JCCF, they're preparing to file I think a court challenge or lawsuit against this. So yeah, because they know that it's they know it's all illegal what they're doing. The federal government, as this is clearly a violation of Section 6 of the Charter, which is supposed to guarantee mobility rights. So the fact that they want to take that away from Canadians, like whether or not whether or not they've been jabbed, that's a huge infringement and violation of the Charter. So yeah, and ever since this whole COVID pandemic has started, they've been violating the Charter in almost every single way. The governments yeah, pretty much all three levels of government, they've been they like violate the charter like in almost every way as they're trying to restrict people from like traveling, and they're trying to like take away people's rights to, or they're like trying to restrict people from like going to public places unless they've been jabbed. So like yeah, it's all like unconstitutional, unlawful what's happening. So I guess so. Like luckily, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms is pushing back against it as they know pretty well that it's a violation of Canadians' rights. So yeah, so that's the end of the article. So I can close that now. So yeah, like what the government is doing, like not only on the federal level but also like on the provincial and municipal levels as well. Like they've been violating the Charter of Rights and Freedoms like in every way imaginable, as they pretty much just tossed it out the door or thrown it in the garbage. So like they think like the charter doesn't matter, or yeah, like they think the charter doesn't matter, or they'll say like things, they'll say stuff like how this like pandemic or these restrictions are justified, or how like um yeah, like how that like how they'll try to justify it by using section 1 of the charter, which says something like how like I think you have rights and freedoms subject to government approval. I think that's what it says. Yeah, they'll use that section of the charter to like to take away people's rights and all that, which I think is like unlawful. And yeah, like they'll use like the very first section of the charter, which would pretty much like just like justify them like taking like restricting people's rights and all that, which um yeah, like I don't think like yeah, like that's not like which is like unlawful. So um yeah, so like what they're doing is like illegal, and like I know like the government, they'll just say like things like how the pandemic, or yeah, like how the pandemic is worth like violating, like how the charter is worth violating if it means like fighting the pandemic or something like that. And or they might use like section 1 of the charter, which says like how you have like rights and freedoms like subject to government approval, something like that it says. So that first part of the charter, it means like how like you basically like how the government can, they can basically take away your rights if they feel like it, or if they, yeah, if they want to, or if they just feel like taking away your rights, then they can do that. As they can, the government, they can just use like section 1 of the charter to justify like restricting your rights and all that. So yeah, and Canadians really need to wake up, as it, as it means that you're not going to be able to like travel if you're not like fully jabbed. So yeah, like you're not going to be able to travel if you're not fully jabbed. And even if you're like, even if you have been jabbed, then you still have to do those like PCR rapid tests. So which is another like, which is another like problem, and another like, I would say another violation too. So yeah, like that's everything I want to talk about. And um yeah, hopefully like more people start like maybe like filing lawsuits or court challenges against the government, as what they're doing is illegal. So that's it. Yeah, so that's everything I want to say, and be signing off now.